Got a couple minutes after 2, so why don't we go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for Americans for Free Trade's Tariff Talk with U.S. companies who've been impacted by the tariffs. Americans for Free Trade represents every part of the U.S. economy, including manufacturers, farmers, agribusiness, retailers, technology companies, service suppliers, natural gas and oil companies, importers, exporters, and other supply chain stakeholders. Collectively, we employ tens of millions of Americans through our vast supply chains. AFT is continuously called upon for an end to the China 301 tariffs, which have continued to harm U.S. businesses, workers, and consumers. We have the pleasure today of hearing from 7 companies about the ongoing impact the tariffs have had on their companies, their workers, and their employee and their consumers. As the administration continues to evaluate the China 301 tariffs, we think it is important that they hear from these and other stories about the negative impact that the tariffs continue to have today. Each of our speakers will provide a 3 to 5 minute opening statement. Then we'll ask a couple of follow-up questions, and then we'll open the line for questions from the press who are on the line. When we open up the line for questions, please raise your hand or put your question in the chat box. And again, just a reminder for those who are not speaking today, please make sure to keep your video off and keep your camera on mute as well. We greatly appreciate it. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start with Chris DiTullio, who is the EVP and Chief Customer Officer from Joanne. Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you heard, I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Customer Officer at Joanne, the nation's leading fabric and crafts and sewing retailer and one of the fastest growers in the art space. I'm honored to be part of the panel this afternoon and I'm eager to engage in dialogue regarding the need to eliminate the Section 301 China tariffs as soon as possible. For the past 80 years, millions of Americans have depended on Joanne for affordable components for what is essentially their made in America sewing and craft projects. In fact, 25% of our customers make their projects from their homes, even from their kitchen tables, and sell those completed projects to support themselves and their families. Nearly another 30% of our customers use our products to give to charities and those in need, and their work has never been more necessary than now. While the highly punitive tariffs have not impacted China as intended when imposed by President Trump, they have instead impacted these very hardworking Americans the most. Our customers, the American people, are in great need of inflation relief, and rescinding these tariffs can help achieve that goal. Joanne, if you didn't know, is based in Northeast Ohio. We have 846 stores across 49 states. We've been a strong, growing, and profitable company that's consistently added stores and created jobs throughout the country. That all became far more difficult when the Trump administration enacted the Section 301 tariffs. Joanne, perhaps more than any other retailer of our size, has been hit hard by these tariffs, being assessed over $90 million in direct and indirect tariffs annually during the 4 years since their initial enactment, with only partial ability to mitigate. We've had no choice, unfortunately, but to pass along portions of the tariff costs to consumers, given the magnitude. I believe one of the most important actions the administration could take to help real Americans with inflation is to rescind the Trump-era Section 301 tariffs. Removing these tariffs will support the continuing growth and viability of our company and others, other importers of products, while curbing inflation and otherwise fostering growth of the U.S. economy. These tariffs, as applied to our fabric and craft supplies and other consumer goods sold by retailers, are not related to the original case made against China, which had to do with intellectual property concerns. At Joanne, we're completely supportive of taking strong actions against unfair trade practices committed by China or anyone, but believe there are more effective tools than tariffs to achieve that end. In fact, tariffs have achieved no other purpose but to increase price of consumer goods here in the United States. I believe the elimination of these tariffs, along with the president signing this afternoon of the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 2022, which will lower ocean freight costs passed on to consumers, could represent a powerful 1-2 punch aimed at reducing the prices of imported goods paid by U.S. consumers. As an American company, we certainly would prefer to source as much of our products as possible from the United States. During the past 4 years, we've had some success at finding factories in other countries, Unfortunately, this has been a small exception. The reality is that many of the products we sell have never been produced in the United States, or their production here has been dormant for well over 50 years. Further, the cost and time requirements to build a modern supply chain infrastructure and source the raw materials has prevented other countries from entering the market. Faced with these challenges of finding inventory, which meets our quantity requirements and our quality standards, we have had no choice but to continue importing from China. Along with other US importers of goods made in China, we've patiently waited 4 years for the complete elimination of the tariffs. When the tariffs are removed, we will be able to begin passing on resulting savings as a direct means of helping to curb inflation and to continue investing in our people, our stores, and our technology, which would otherwise help invigorate the US economy. Having worked with the Biden administration closely on the enactment of today's Ocean Shipping Reform Act, we know the president is committed to reducing inflation and helping Americans. We call on further action to continue by rescinding these punitive tariffs. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I'll be happy to participate in questions when the presentations have concluded. Thank you.
Great. Chris, thank you very much for those comments. I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Sherrill Mosee with MinkeeBlue.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm Shriel, the founder of MinkeeBlue Organizational Travel and Work Bags, and I've been in business since 2014. And I started really trying to find a manufacturer in the US, but of course the pricing was out of my range, and since been manufacturing overseas. The tariffs have really impacted my business. I mean, we started off at 17.6%. And then on top of that, additional 30%, 25 to 30%. So I have really slowed down the amount that I have ordered from overseas because I just simply cannot afford to bring that in. I have raised my prices a little bit, but it really does not cover all of the additional costs with the tariffs. So I've been selling bags on my website, the same styles for over a year, which is not good for my business. But it's only because I can't afford to pay for the tariff. So I'm really asking that the committee, the president really look into this, especially for a small business as myself, to lower those taxes or eliminate the duty taxes so that I can afford to bring more product in and afford to offer it at a competitive price and be competitive as the other big retailers in my industry. So thank you so much for this time and allowing me to be a part of this.
Great. Shriel, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and turn over to Joe Bell now. Joe, are you still there?
I'm here, sorry.
No
Good
worries.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Bell and I work at Aqua Filter Fresh, Incorporated in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're a small business that has serviced the tri-state area since 1981 with our bottled water service. Our service provides water coolers to offices, homes, and many industrial and construction sites where there is no city water available. We buy water coolers that meet a spec that we require to provide commercial grade units for our customers. The spec includes classic Roman column look, leak prevention, warranty, serviceability, UL certifications, and we require them to be made with food grade materials that will not affect the taste of our bottled water products. The 301 tariffs are adding extra cost to our business at a time when raw materials, labor, fuel, energy costs are causing inflation. I use the saying all the time that oil and water do not mix, which might be the understatement of the year. Every month, it seems we have had to adjust pricing on our products. Some of them have been going up multiple times just in 2022 alone, but many increases started in 2021. The tariffs are adding additional cost to an already inflationary market. We buy approximately 1,500 to 2,000 water coolers a year. With the extra tariff cost, that's a conservative estimate of $64,500 in extra cost on just our cooler purchases. As I stated before, we're a small company, and this has caused us to raise our cost to our customers. Our problem is the type of coolers we buy are no longer manufactured in the United States and have not been made here for almost 15 years. Our industry was hit with these tariffs in 2018, and we did at that time receive an exclusion for them. We were surprised that they were back in 2021 after the change in administrations, but this was an unbudgeted expense and threw our forecast for the year out of balance at a time after the year had already started. If we get the exclusion again, we would pass on the savings to our customers because we do not want to charge more for our coolers, but costs are costs and our hands have been tied because of these tariffs. The other frustrating thing is that we had tariffs in 2018, received the exclusion, then they came back in 2021. We really need to get off this seesaw because it has hurt our industry and wasted our resources. Thank you very much, and I'll entertain any questions when you're ready.
Great. Thank you very much, Joe. I want to go and turn to Rob Cohen with Display Supply and Lighting.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to listen to our concerns about the 301 tariffs and their negative impact on our small business. My name is Rob Cohen. I'm an owner and the Vice President of Display Supply and Lighting and GP Manufacturing based in Itasca, Illinois. We've been in business over 42 years. I am also a board member of the Experiential Designers and Producers Association, representing several hundred designers and builders of trade show and display environments. Prior to the pandemic, my company provided 26 hardworking Americans with the opportunity to financially support their families. We provide high-quality lighting and supply products for temporary installations in the area of trade shows and live events. The products I'm speaking of today are LED lighting products, power supplies, and electrical cords. We sell our products to other companies who design and build trade show booths, product activations, and live events. They incorporate our products into their designs and employ more hardworking American citizens. They sell their works mostly to American companies, employing more hardworking Americans. List 3 of the HTS codes contains the 4 primary HTS codes that we import products under. Most of our products are subject to a 25% ad valorem tax. We work with a few Chinese contract manufacturers using our U.S. employees to create design specifications. We finalize the designs of the products after reviewing drawings and/or testing prototypes. We invest and own the tooling and molds needed to make our products. Our products meet or exceed applicable U.S. UL standards, and we have our products tested to and listed to those UL standards because we care about quality and safety. We make the products in China to keep our overall costs down so we can compete with competitors' products that do not meet these standards. We have an associate in China who visits our contract manufacturers to assure us that our standards are being adhered to and that our molds and tooling are not being used other than for the intended purposes. The tariffs are really a tax on small businesses like ours, as no Chinese business or government is paying these tariffs. We pay the tariffs up front at the time of importing. Our annual ad valorem tariff expense is roughly 3% of our annual revenues. This is a significant portion of our gross profit margin. On top of the impact of the tariffs, we have now learned of a shortage of neon gas due to the Russian-Ukrainian war. Neon gas is used to make chips for LEDs. Neon gas made in the US goes to the semiconductor industry. This leaves the Ukraine and China as the other significant potential sources. This shortage will further disrupt our supply chain and result in further skyrocketing costs during the second half of the year. How many more blows can small businesses afford to take? A rescission of these tariffs can help us all feel relief from the inflationary market we are living in. For the foregoing reasons, we request the Biden administration to immediately rescind these tariffs. Thank you for your time.
Great. Rob, thank you very much. We're going to go now turn to Deena Ghazarian from Austere.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deena Ghazarian. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Austere. We are a home theater accessory company that makes accessory products for tech. So for example, we make cables such as like HDMI or speaker cable, power, so surge protection, and cleaning type products. Robert, I literally could not agree more with everything you just said, because your life has been my life over the past couple of years. We are a Portland, Oregon based company that was started in 2019. And unfortunately for us, all of our goods are also on list 3. But the slight difference is, being 3 years old, if you do the math, we launched right about now, 3 years ago, where we had put into play programs with our retail partners. And we do a lot of business with the mid to, bigger regional tech companies throughout the United States: Best Buy, PC Richard in New York, Curacao in Los Angeles, BrandsMart in Florida, as examples, cons throughout all of the Southwest. And right before we went to launch our product, every single one of our products hit that list 3, which was the additional 25% tariff. And for those of you who know, when you do business with partners and you put programs into play, we were then locked into a list of program that we could not get out of for at least a year when we went to business. So that 25% tariff impacted in my investors' investment into the company. Over 25% of our original investment has gone out to tariffs since the beginning. That's 25% of money that I could be used to be hiring people, putting more product into the space, etc. So it's been a major impact for us. And much like what Robert was saying as well, in our conversation, product of ours needs to be certified. A lot of those certification companies are based internationally, are based in China. And the way to get that certification is to do and build your product in China. So finding the right partners outside of China to bring it out and do somewhere differently and produce product differently is just impossible for us. So we have been tied into what that looks like. 1 year after we went to market, we did have the ability to raise our prices slightly. And so we did that, but then in turn, between the freight challenges and additional supply chain costs, and the fact that there are not a lot of products that we need to build in production, it's been a huge burden on our business, and something that any kind of a relief would be wonderful for a small startup like ourselves. The one thing that I cannot stress enough is that when you really look at a small business like ourselves, the talent that you want to be able to have really sits itself all over the world. And though you may build, design, and have structure around what you want based here in the United States, the talent of what you need really lives everywhere and becomes this global market. And when you have countries that are basically in a tariff type of war, the only people that don't benefit from that are the manufacturers like us, who supply jobs to families here in the United States all day, every day. And so I cannot stress enough that not only would it be a wonderful relief and something that we could extend back out to our retail partners and in turn the consumers, but just staying afloat and being able to innovate and grow a business by having monies that are going towards a tariff to be able to use and drive that growth in business would be extremely helpful. So I cannot stress enough why and how we are on the side of removing these tariffs and making a difference for our companies, for our businesses, and for the people that work for us here in the United States.
Great. Thank you, Deena. Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments. Let's go ahead and turn over to Joe Shammy with Delta Children's Products.
Hello, thank you for listening to all us manufacturers and understanding the things that we are all going through. Delta is the largest manufacturer of children's sleep products, meaning cribs, bassinets, beds, and mattresses in the world. We manufacture most of the hard products, meaning the cribs, the bassinets, and beds overseas in China, and we manufacture the mattresses here in the US. There is no way you can manufacture the crib, the bed here in the United States. There is zero production happening here in America. Delta was started in 1968 by my dad, Mr. Louis Shammy, who focused on safety. He made his lifelong commitment to developing safe and affordable products for parents. And my brother and I continue. We have our children, our adult children in the business, and we even have our grandchildren in the catalog. So we're a 4-generation business. Again, focused on safety. If you were to ask the Consumer Product Safety Commission, who are the experts in bringing safety to parents, to children, they would say my brother Sam Shammy is the #1 person responsible for bringing safe cribs, beds, bassinets to children. He literally changed the laws, worked together with the government to change all of the laws with relationship to cribs. And we spend millions of dollars doing that for our money, Delta's money, developing that for parents. One of my biggest fears is that we will go back to the old days where parents took old hand-me-down product, whether it be from friends and family or from a thrift shop and more, and exactly what the government fought for 10, 12 years ago in developing better standards and safer places for children will actually be reversed, and they'll be using older product that is unsafe. This 25% tariff that you have put on basically parents is a tax on those individuals. They have so many other expenses when a new child comes into their life, that why would you put 25% additional cost on them developing safe places for their children to sleep, for their children to play, and for their children to enjoy? There's so much other expenses that are going on. Delta is also, now if you were to Google Delta, you would see that we are at everything from I personally have been at Fort Bragg about 4 or 5 times. I've been at Fort Dix 12 times, Scotts Air Force Base, and as well as Children's Hospital in Pennsylvania. I could give you a long list of charities that I've been at, giving out tens of thousands of cribs and mattresses to make sure that every child has a safe place to sleep. That is our goal. That is my brother and I's #1 focus. Of course, what we developed this slogan, every child deserves a safe place to sleep. And that's not just about us producing product and selling product. It's about helping the industry develop the safest products out there. It's about helping parents get educated and understanding it. And it's about us giving out, probably today, I would say minimum $6-7 million in safe products for those parents that cannot afford it to sleep. You are taking us backwards by doing so. So while I am appealing for my own company, because we're suffering from these additional tariffs, I would also say I am appealing for every single parent out there who has a new child, who has enough to worry about and enough expenses, that we need to help them out. And this would be one of the major things for a big investment, keeping those children safe and those parents happy. I could go on and on. I'll answer more questions after, but I think I've given you a pretty big challenge out there. Let's do what's right by those parents and those infants. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the comments. And finally, we have Ann Leventry with PanAmerican Seed Company.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for providing this opportunity to tell a little bit about our story and some of the challenges that we're facing. PanAmerican Seed is a flower seed company. We basically develop new varieties. We produce seed in farms around the world. We our business structure is set. We bring all that seed into the United States. We do additional processing, treating, packaging, and ship out to our global customer base from our suburban Chicago location. And we have been pretty significantly impacted by these tariffs. Our industry is very much global. Every one of our competitors is based in another country. They're Dutch, German, Japanese, Thai. Everyone is based in another country. So no other company in our industry has tariffs that they have to deal with that also produces in China. We established a farm in China about 15 years ago. And it would be extremely disruptive and expensive to try to move that farm to another location. We purchased the land along with the government. We put a lot of expense into the greenhouse structure, and we trained all the people. So initially our reaction was to look at moving, but it would be very, very challenging for us to do that. In addition to having to pay these tariffs, which I would add, we are not able, because our competitors don't have these tariffs, we are not able to pass on. So we are eating all of these tariffs. It just affects our bottom line directly because we're competing with people who don't have the tariffs to deal with. In addition to that, China, in retaliation, in our segment of the business, they put tariffs on their end. So when we ship seed there, we have to pay an extra 10% to get it in. And our customers are all asking us to share in that burden with them. So that's an additional cost to us. So it's been quite a burden for us being the only American-based flower seed company. We would like to stay American-based, but these kinds of policies are very problematic for us. So thank you for your time, and I will also take any questions.
Great. Thank you much, Anne. Appreciate all the stories. And I think, as you can tell by listening to everybody, the tariffs certainly do continue to have a negative impact on companies across the board. And this is just a small sampling of the stories that we continue to hear about from companies both small and large. Just a reminder, if you do have questions, please do raise your hand or put your question in the chat, and we'll get to those in just a minute. I think many of you, as you were talked about the difficulty in shifting sourcing away from China for a variety of reasons. I know many of you have tried and have not had success in being able to do that. I know several of you also looked at U.S. manufacturers, and I think some of you noted that the manufacturing just doesn't exist here. Shriel, maybe I can start with you real quick. So I know, the conversation we had the other day, as a small business, I think, you talked about facing additional challenges with just manufacturers not wanting to produce in small batches. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the challenge you face there.
Yeah, so my bags, what's different about my bags than what's on the market is that it has a folding shelf right in the middle of the bag, because I wanted to be able to separate my shoes and my lunch from everything else on the bag. And so it's very labor intensive, and it requires special machinery. And so because of the tariffs, and I reached out to several manufacturers here in the US to bring it back in the US. But what I found is that they just, number one, excuse me, don't have the machinery to do the bag with the shelf in the middle. And number two, they're not interested in doing smaller batches for me here in the US. So I was really stuck on what I needed to do. And just to give you another idea is that, a typical tote bag, the number of pieces to sew it together might be 15 to 20 pieces. For my particular bag, it takes about 120 pieces to put it together. And so again, it's very labor intensive and requires a lot of machinery. And I reached out to several manufacturers in the US trying to bring it back here, but they could not, wasn't interested in doing smaller batches. And I only could do smaller batches because the price would go up tremendously to manufacture here. And number two, they weren't interested or didn't have the machinery to do the fashion type bags that I had. So thank you so much for allowing me to share.
Great, thank you. And I know, Deena, you've had similar challenges with your business as well.
We have. So one of the products that I make is an HDMI cable, and HDMI.org, who's based here in the United States, requires a special level of certification. If you're going to actually have a quality cable, they will stand behind that will pass the signal. And as the data rates change all the time, and for those of you on the tech side of the business, you'll feel this, but for those of you not, as an example, HDMI since the beginning 20 years ago in 2002 has changed the certification level 14 times, but have never changed the connector. So the customer doesn't know necessarily when they need to upgrade that cable and what that looks like. So in order for you to guarantee that signal, we actually have a premium certification and an ultra certification. So HDMI.org will say, if you really want to stand for something, go get the certification done. If you go look at the list of where you can actually get the product certified, 95% of those companies are China-based companies that factories work with and deal with. The other 5% are in other markets, and I think there might be only one in the United States that's so backed up in regards to certification, it would take over 6 months to get it through the process, where when you go through the regular way, it takes 5 minutes. So what's interesting is when we went and asked for an exclusion within the tariff for HDMI specifically, for just this reason, to be quick to market, to be able to compete, and to bring out the best quality product possible, we were prevented from going elsewhere, which really gave us no choice but to try to stay in China to be able to move fast and be quick. Because just because the tariff war was going on didn't mean you had to be quick to market and be there for your consumers when they needed you with the most quality product. So it's been very difficult to do and move out of country. For that is one of many reasons that I could give as a good example.
Great, thank you. And I know, Joe, Joe Shammy, you talked about just the business just not being here in the States anymore. It's been taken elsewhere. I mean, is there any opportunity to bring any of that business back here to the US, and how long would that take?
I don't see any opportunity to bring that kind of business back to the United States, and the infrastructure is not here for it. The price points, making a crib for basically FOB China for under $50, with all of the woodwork that's involved, the plastic, the metal, the packaging, and so forth. There's nothing. And remember, I am a domestic manufacturer. So if it could be done, I would be the one doing it. We have a plant in Wisconsin. We're in Kansas manufacturing. So Wisconsin makes our mattresses. In Kansas, we make plastic, big, giant blow molded car beds. Maybe some of you grew up in or have grandchildren, kids in, and several other products that we are making domestically here in America. So it's not like we're this company that says, oh, we only want to import, we don't want to employ people. We employ over 500 people, much more today. So there's no possibility. Also, I'd like to point out safety. Again, I'll go back to it. We built our own, and my brother's on the call. I say we, but he's the one that worked on more than anyone else. 9 safety labs throughout China. And those safety labs are state of the art and are testing every single product. And we have our own people in there testing it. So we can't just all of a sudden move somewhere else. Those people have been trained, have expertise. And the same thing with the factories. Some of these factories that we deal with, I'm sorry if it's a long-winded note, but they go back to my father's days. And we don't bounce around from factory to factory because someone's another dollar or two, because it's more about the longevity of understanding how to make a safe product. And that is the key. So not these products.
And again, Joe, the other challenge too, it's not just the finished products that have the tariffs on it, but it's the inputs as well that you're facing tariffs. So if you want to bring manufacturing back, you're facing the kind of the double whammy of now having to pay on the inputs as well.
So we, on the mattress factory, by the way, I was going to point that out, but I said there's so much I'm speaking about the others. We pay the components for the mattresses are also 25%. And then the machinery for us to help employ people in America is also 25%. So I don't understand, that's getting machinery so we can employ people and bring it back to America. They tax that as well. So, well, I understand China's got its issues and America has, we need to protect ourselves and so forth, but we need to do it smart. And as some of the people explained on this call, it has not done the smart way. We need to figure out what the smart way is to do it and challenge China correctly, as opposed to hurting ourselves, hurting the manufacturers. Again, I repeat, hurting those poor families that are especially suffering today.
Great, appreciate that. I want to turn a little bit to the exclusions process, because I know a couple of you talked about, the ability to get exclusion, just kind of the difficulty with exclusion and how that process has kind of gone back and forth. Joe Bell, I know you mentioned it a little bit, but I guess the lack of transparency in that process, not knowing kind of how or why, you got it or when it's going to be extended, if extended. Talk about the impact the uncertainty has on you and how you're planning for the future.
Getting to 2021, we were surprised when the tariffs came back at the change of the administrations. And, that's not something that we budgeted for to happen. We didn't see it coming because we figured we had the exclusion and that was going to remain in place. That's a big budget event for us as a small company. I mean, we only have 55 employees. So when you add those types of dollars to our budget without warning, that really, is a kick in the rear end. And I call it the seesaw effect. They were here in 2018, we got an exclusion, they were gone, we went to sleep on the subject because we thought it wasn't coming back, and then they surprised us in 2021. So there's no domestic manufacturers to turn to on this product, and there's no domestic manufacturing that I know of that anybody is looking to start up, because all the components for the coolers that go inside the units, they're all made over in China too, and they would be tariffed to come over here and build the same problem that you're hearing from everybody else. So I call it the seesaw effect. We want to get off it.
Great, thank you. And Chris, with Joanne, what was your experience with the exclusions? I think you guys had applied for a few. What was the experience that you guys went through?
Sure. Yes, we certainly were very aggressive throughout the early, 2018, 2019, et cetera, in filing and in fighting. And unfortunately, very little success. We did have one exclusion, but for the most part, not. And as a result, really paying huge tariffs. I think you heard in my opening statement, it's cost our company $90 million a year in direct and indirect tariffs, which is significant. It's the kind of impact on a company that causes us to not be able to invest in our stores the way we want to, the way our team members and customers deserve, to not be able to, really invest in our infrastructure. So the real frustrating thing, I think, for us is that, everything that we sell, for the most part, is a component, piece to make a finished product, which, as you heard, so many of our customers then turn around and sell on various online exchanges or at, craft shows, et cetera. Passing along those increased tariffs is painful to those people. This is painful directly to the American people who are already facing, nearly record high inflation. So, when the tariffs are impacting component parts, but they're not impacting the finished product that other retailers are importing, it really puts us at an unfair, field in our view. So really rolling these back, we believe will have a very direct impact on improving, inflation concerns that the American public has.
Thanks. And Chris, many of those companies that are, you're talking about really are kind of small and micro businesses that are, kind of one-stop shops selling those products online. So,
Absolutely.
It's even more of an impact on those businesses that really can't afford that additional hit.
That's right. That's right.
Rob, have you had any experience with the exclusions?
We have, and they weren't good ones. You have a choice when you file exclusions as a small business. You either do it yourself or you have to undertake hiring an attorney in a specialized field and pay a huge amount of money to try and do it with no guaranteed result. We filed 10 requests for exclusions on specific products based on owning the technology ourselves, only owning the tooling and the molds, as well as having paid for the UL certification process. And we were summarily dismissed and denied on all accounts.
And Rob, when you got your denial letter, did they provide any kind of reasoning or justification as to why you were denied?
No, it was basically 2 letters, N-O. And let's keep in mind, you know, as Deena pointed out, when you get into areas of UL certifications or other types of certifications, if you change a component, you have to retest, let alone if you move to another country. And for us to make new molds, to go through new UL testing on a product, if we could find a company in another country to manufacture, and we certainly can't in the United States, we continually exhaust those opportunities, we'd be looking at an investment of over $500,000 just to maintain our existing product lines. Small businesses can't afford to do that.
You can't transfer. You have
No.
to recertify, which is
Correct.
crazy because it's the original product and you're just trying to make it somewhere else exactly how it is. Robert is 100% correct. It's crazy.
And can I just, Polly, on that? You don't know if the tariff's going to continue, not going to continue. So you have the uncertainty. I sort of say, I have these factors I mentioned that have been with us since my father's days. I have these test slips that have been with us for ages in a train. So if I were to pick up and move, even if I were capable of doing it, I basically use the term, I'm screwing those people who have been with me for a lifetime, actually 2 lifetimes. I start up the other place, which is, of course, millions and millions, and then the tariffs go off, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Do I go back to the people and beg for forgiveness and start up there? Do I continue in the other country, which doesn't have the ability to do that?
And we've tried to be fair with our customers. We keep tariffs as a separate line item on our invoices, as opposed to increasing the price of products. None of my competitors do that, but it's to fairly show the customer what is a tariff and the fact that if the administration removes it, it will go away. We guarantee that.
That's good.
And Rob, you know, that brings me to kind of my next question. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion within the administration over the past, couple of months, and especially picking up with the last few weeks about, looking at tariffs as a way to help combat inflation. I know, AFT certainly has been calling for the removal of tariffs from the get-go. We've been calling about the need to, this is going to help inflation. It's not going to obviously get rid of all inflation, but it's a starting point. And I think, one of the things we keep hearing about is, how quickly can companies look to share some of those savings with customers. I think it's great that you're pointing it out specifically on your invoices. But, curious for others, how quickly can you then turn, if we do get some kind of tariff reduction? And, the question there is, how long is that tariff reduction? Is it a long term or is it short term? And, what decision do you have to make then? How quickly will that transition to the system? Sam, I think you had your hand up on that one.
Yes, because I wanted to give a detailed explanation that prices will come down. That's the simple answer. But in order for you to understand why that happens, I want to first tell you how prices eventually were raised because of tariffs and how they're going to come down. So when tariffs first hit, us and our competitors were all faced with, a tremendous increase in cost. And we all basically followed the same action plan. One, let's ask our China factories, can you reduce price? And for the most part, the factories came back and said, yeah, we'll take 3% off, we'll take 4% off, we'll take 1% off. So we got a little bit back. Second option, move out of China. As everybody stated, this is really hard. And safety and et cetera are all important concerns. We accomplished maybe moving 10% of our China tariff product outside China. And it wasn't at the same price we're paying in China. We paid considerably more. So maybe we saved 5 or 10% overall after tariffs were figured in. The next option, and this is especially at the very beginning of this, was absorb a significant cost and hit our margins. And for the most part, we and our competitors did that first year and a half. We had no choice. We were all competing against each other, and we were all afraid to be the first guy to raise prices, because we knew if we raised price, our competitor would swoop in and even at a loss and take our market share away from us. So we all held our breath, took the hit, and absorbed a big portion of that increase. So it really hurt us badly. Eventually, as new products came out, as you did new programs with the retailers, et cetera, that tariff was factored into the cost, and prices rose, and they rose significantly. Not just by us, but by all our competitors. It just naturally happens. You know, before it was an outside cost, now it's specific. You
Yeah, I'm on my way to
into
pick
your
up the
pricing.
minis, the 6.
What's that? Sorry, Kevin.
So nope, someone was off mute.
Yeah. So naturally over time prices increase, and that's why we see this tremendous inflation. And on juvenile products, on cribs specifically, it's up way more than the 8% that the government is saying. So basically, I'm going to tell you how now. Again, competition, free market works. When if that tariff comes off, it comes out of our cost. Okay, now we have a choice. Oh, we could be, wise guys, keep the price up and just try and make more money. But guess what? Our competitor is right behind us, breathing over our neck and going to the buyer and saying, I've got a new price for you. I'm going to sell it to you cheaper. And so we, on the other hand, are going to actually do that in advance, because we know that we'll lose our business if we don't lower our price. So in reality, it's the funniest thing is it took us a long time to raise prices, but prices will come down much quicker, even though our inventory that we have is tariffed at 25%. We'll take a loss on that because we have no choice to be competitive.
Yeah, Sam, some of us can't. So we almost have to wait until it sells out and the new one comes in. It's a very hard spot to be in.
But we have, but you know what your competitor is going to do.
You're right. You're right.
So we're going to have to, unfortunately, we got hit at the beginning and we get hit at again when the tariffs do come off. But this is a free market economy, and the competition works. The consumer always wins.
So, I mean, Deena, to your point, obviously there's gonna be a difference between how companies can do that and the ability to pass through and how quickly you can do that. I mean, we all heard when the tariffs are first put in place, it's gonna be short-term pain for long-term gain. And it seems like it's long-term pain for no gain whatsoever. So, I mean, and for you, where you're getting hit tariff both on kind of the inbound and outbound, I mean, what are your thoughts on if tariffs are removed? Obviously we want to see China remove their tariffs as well as a part of this. But, what are you thinking as far as how quickly could we see any price impact?
So for my business specific, oh, did you say Ann or Deena? I'm sorry.
Deena, go ahead. I'll go to Ann next.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. My business specifically, because of the holding on and the tariff that's already in the product, it'll take at least a huge holiday season in 6 months before you could even get on the other end of that.
Great, thank you. And for you?
So for us, we never passed any of the increased cost on, and because our competition is not based here, so nobody else passed anything on. So we had to basically just eat that cost. And in China, I think our customers are passing some of that, onto their customers, but we're splitting that tariff going into China. So they're getting like, they'll probably get a 5% decrease in China. But yeah, I think, and just to go back to the exclusion, we were fortunate in the very beginning that the American Seed Trade Association on our behalf helped us to pull the information together and file for an exclusion. And the first year we paid the tariff, but then we got the exclusion and they gave us a rebate for what we had paid. And then immediately went back in, and it's been in ever since. So I also thought with the Biden administration that we would see some relief, but it doesn't appear so. And according the American Seed Trade Association is very active in lobbying, and they've given us feedback that there's no end in sight from their perspective.
Thanks. And Chris, I know you guys have definitely been heavily engaged in this, and how quickly you think you could see some of those price impacts if the tariffs were removed?
Yeah, for sure. We, I'm going to keep saying it, the $90 million that we've been impacted with, it impacted more than product costs. It certainly did impact the retails that we're charging, but it impacted how much we can invest in wages for team members. It impacted how much we can invest in our stores, in our business infrastructure. So repealing and rescinding these tariffs, we will be able to begin passing along product savings at retail. We'll be focused on investing in team members and investing in stores. And really, we see the repeal of these highly punitive tariffs as something that can impact all aspects of the economy. Beyond just the individual purchase, we think it can help really fuel an economic turnaround.
Great, thank you. Sherrill, how about for you? Obviously, as a small business, what are your thoughts if the tariffs get lifted? What would be the results for you?
I'll be so excited. Oh my gosh, I will be able to order more products to offer to my customers. I was so happy when Biden won. I just knew this was at the top of the list to get rid of these tariffs. And I don't understand why is it taking so long? Why can't he see the issue, or the administration see what it's doing? But if they're lifted, let me rephrase that. When they're lifted, and I hope very soon, it will allow me to grow my business. Right now, I'm just like this and on the verge of I can't afford to bring anything in. So everything is stagnant. So it'll help me grow my business and add more to the bottom line.
Great, thank you. And Rob, how about for you guys?
Well, we manage our inventory pretty carefully. So we keep a 90 to 120 day supply rolling. So if the tariffs were lifted, within 120 days, we'd be removing the pass-through of the tariffs onto customers because we'd sell out the inventory that's been impacted by it. So there's a real immediate positive effect for our customers.
Great. And Joe Bell, how about for you guys?
It's the same thing for us. This is our peak season, and we look at the water cooler as a razor and razor blade issue. We don't want to make the cooler higher in cost than it has to be, because that's prohibitive to setting up new accounts. So being our peak season, it's 95 degrees and high humidity right now. The water industry is a good place to be this time of year. And we would certainly burn through our inventory in probably 6 weeks to 10 weeks in that period this time of year, because we bulked up for the summer run. But once that's over, we would reduce the cost on those coolers to make it less prohibitive to become a new account with us and pass that benefit on to our customers.
Great, thank you. We're coming up on time here, and I don't see any questions in the chat right now. So let me just throw it open to our panelists. If there's any additional comments that you all would like to share, any closing comments before we sign off.
I guess I would like to say, I recall somebody said this earlier, that the tariffs haven't seemed to have any impact at all on intellectual property rights, which was the intention at the beginning. And, you know, our business is very oriented toward intellectual property protection, and we haven't seen any impact on that whatsoever. It's still a very big problem, and it still continues, and I haven't seen any impact of it. So whatever it was designed to do is not working.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. I was going to jump in on that. I believe I said that in my remarks as well. You know, certainly the intent was there, but it has not impacted the way it was intended. In fact, these tariffs not only are impacting everyone in this call and their businesses, they're impacting the entire American public because many of us are having to pass them along. So we really see that if we can get these tariffs rescinded immediately, it can have a back half impact on inflation in this country.
Thanks, Chris. And I think as one of you noted also, it's not just an impact on the consumers, but it's also, you know, impacting your ability to invest in your own businesses and invest in your people, which is so important right now as we're seeing, you know, the inability to get folks with the labor market. So having the ability to reinvest in your people is certainly critical right now. So thank you all for your comments. Anybody else wanted to add something before we wrap up? If not, then again, thank you to all of our panelists today. Thank you to everybody who joined the conversation today. Please keep a lookout for more from Americans for Free Trade. And if you have any interest or want more information about the coalition, please do reach out. Happy to get more folks engaged. Again, we know this is an issue that's impacting a lot of people across the country, and we think it's important now to continue to press the administration for tariff relief and to address the ongoing negative impact the tariffs have on the economy. So again, thank you, everybody. Hope everybody has a wonderful day, and we'll talk to everybody soon.